This video is going to cover some of the highlights and some of the most important issues that you'll need to think about if you're interested in preventing slips, trips, and falls in the wholesale and retail trade sector. Whether you're a small business owner or whether you're responsible for a safety program at a business in the wholesale and retail trade sector, hopefully this presentation will have some information that's useful for you. Let's start by asking a pretty simple question. Why care about slips, trips, and falls? Well, not surprisingly, slips, trips, and falls can result in injuries that can devastate businesses, individual workers, and their families. And on a big population scale, these injuries can really add up. Workers' compensation companies spent more than $8.6 billion to pay for medical costs and lost wages associated with slips, trips, and falls on the same level. Now, to put this into context, for that amount of money, you could buy the 5 most expensive Major League Baseball franchises and still have $400 million left over. Now, not all of those costs were incurred in the wholesale and retail trade sector, but a fair amount of them were. When we look at the number of fall-related injuries that resulted in lost work time, the retail sector and the food service sector are second and third only to the health sector. Now, this video is part of a series related to the aging of the workforce. Slips, trips, and falls in the wholesale and retail trade sector become more frequent as employees age. We'll talk about some of the reasons why this happens in just a moment, but it's important to emphasize that the workforce is aging, which is going to make slip, trip, and fall prevention an increasing priority in the coming decades. But so too is the population. The population as a whole is aging, which means that if you're a retail establishment, your customers are going to be aging, making slip, trip, and fall prevention an increasing priority for liability reasons. So you might be wondering what to do. To get at that, we'll talk about some of the leading causes of slips, trips, and falls in the wholesale and retail trade sector and what to do about them. So it's not going to come as a huge surprise that every worker in your organization is aging. And as people age, physiological changes affect their balance, their vision, their strength, which are all important risk factors for fall-related injuries. Exercise, such as Tai Chi and yoga and balance classes, can actually counteract these physiological changes to prevent people from falling. Fatigue is another important risk factor for slips, trips, and falls, so this is particularly relevant for workers who are working late at night or very early in the morning. And while we can't imagine a construction worker going to work without proper footwear on, it happens all the time in the wholesale and retail trade sector. Inappropriate, loose, or poorly fitting footwear can cause slips, trips, and falls as easily in a retail work environment as on a construction site. Now, often slips, trips, and falls result from individual level risk factors like age or balance interacting with factors in the work environment. We've listed here some of the most important factors in the work environment that can cause people to slip, trip, and fall in the wholesale and retail trade sector. Now, this is based not only off of intuition, this is based off of research that was compiled by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health that we'll direct you to at the end of the presentation. Spills on walking surfaces, of course, can cause slippery areas. Ice and snow and rain create hazards outdoors that can be tracked indoors. Loose mats and rugs can result in people tripping. Boxes and containers can obstruct people's vision, as depicted in the photo here. Poor lighting can affect visibility and can increase the risk of a slip, trip, and fall injury. And walking surfaces that are in disrepair or that have a change in elevation can cause employees to slip, trip, or fall. Now, it's important to have policies and programs in place to manage each of these hazards, and we'll point you to some practical tools to help you manage these hazards in your work environment. Now, it's also important to pay attention to work organization factors that can increase the risk of a slip, trip, and fall. A fast work pace where employees feel rushed, that can lead to slip, trip, and fall injuries, and so too can work tasks that involve handling liquid or greasy materials. Now, it's important to keep in mind that you're not alone in slip, trip, and fall prevention. Regulatory agencies and scientific experts have developed a series of standards and laws to help you prevent slips, trips, and falls among your employees and among your customers. Public agencies are in charge of snow removal and ice removal and sidewalk maintenance to prevent people from slipping and tripping and falling close to your business. You can encourage your employees to check out community health classes, including Tai Chi and balance classes and ballroom dancing classes that can improve their balance and reduce the likelihood of a slip, trip, and fall injury. And it's also valuable to be aware of companies that offer particular product lines that focus on slip-resistant footwear, slip-resistant flooring material. Keen Footwear, Crocs Footwear, just a couple of shoe companies that have slip-resistant lines. Altro Flooring has slip-resistant flooring options available. These are just a select few of many, many companies that have slip-resistant product lines that can help you and your business prevent slip, trips, and falls among your workers and among your customers. If you're looking for some additional guidance, I'd recommend starting with this document, Preventing Slips, Trips, and Falls in Wholesale and Retail Trade Establishments. It's free and available online through the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health's website. And it's also worth mentioning an organization called the National Floor Safety Institute. You can find some technical documents at nfsi.org. We've collected these documents, these resources, as well as a series of other useful resources on our website, which you can find at www.agefriendlyworkplace.org.